This will be a short lesson covering the neo-Malthusian versus anti-Malthusian viewpoints. This is Mr. St. Clair, 2013. Our objective is to be able to discuss the two opposing views of the relationship between population size and resource consumption, often known as the neo-Malthusian viewpoint and the anti-Malthusian viewpoint. Our command term here is to discuss, and thus we want to offer a balanced review In other words, how does the population size relate to resource use? Is there a certain number of people that the Earth can support? Firstly, where does the term Malthusian come from? Thomas Malthus was a British cleric and scholar who lived during the 18th and 19th centuries. He was influential in the fields of economics and demographics, and predicted in his essay on the principle of population that without checks on population growth, we were headed for a serious decline in our standard of living and even a possible catastrophe. His idea was based on observations that population and the resources needed to support the population grow at different rates. According to Malthus, population grows exponentially and food production grows arithmetically. It's obvious as to why population would grow exponentially. To understand why Malthus thought that food production would not grow as fast, you have to understand that given the technology of the era, the only way to increase food production would be to cultivate an ever-increasing area of land. We begin by plotting the two rates on a graph, time on the horizontal axis and the two rates on the vertical axis. As you can see, population grows exponentially, forming a bit of a J curve. Food production only grows arithmetically, so its curve is rather flat, and at some point population will overcome food production, leaving us in dire straits. The neo-Malthusians are the new, recent, or revived believers in what Thomas Malthus wrote around 2 centuries ago. The most famous of these is Paul Ehrlich, a professor at Stanford University in the Department of Biological Sciences. He is best known for his dire warnings about population growth and limited resources. His general thesis is that the human population is too large and a direct threat to our survival and the environment of the planet. In 1968, he wrote a book, The Population Bomb, which began with this statement: "The battle to feed all of humanity is over. In the 1970s, hundreds of millions of people will starve to death in spite of any crash programs embarked upon now. At this late date, nothing can prevent a substantial increase in the world death rate." Of course, my favorite quote is, "We are sawing off the limb that we're sitting on." The ultimate scenario for Ehrlich and the other neo-Malthusians would be wars, famines, resource depletion, and other situations that are a result of a competition for dwindling natural resources. In opposition to the neo-Malthusians are the anti-Malthusians, which are often known as cornucopian optimists. The cornucopians are those who believe that advances in technology can take care of society's needs. An increase in population is viewed positively because with more population comes more brains to generate ideas. These ideas generate technology in the forms of modern gadgets, procedures, systems, among other things, that help address the problems associated with human sustenance and improving people's quality of life. The origin of the term is the cornucopia, or horn of plenty, is a symbol of abundance and nourishment, commonly a large horn-shaped container overflowing with produce, flowers, nuts, and other edibles. It can also be seen as used as a symbol on the flag of North Carolina. The idea that the more the better, and that population can actually help a society become better. Oftentimes we think of early America being a good example of this. The most well-known of the cornucopian optimists was Esther Bosrup. She was a Danish economist who studied economics and agricultural development and worked at the United Nations as well as other international organizations, and also wrote several books. Bosrup argued that population determines agricultural methods, meaning with a growing population will come advances in agriculture. A major point of one of her books is that necessity is the mother of invention. It was her great belief that humanity would always find a way, and was quoted in saying, "The power of ingenuity would always outmatch that of demand." So while once again we have the exponential growth of population as seen here, food production will always stay on the left of the curve. So we're still left to wonder, is there an optimum population? Of course, most would describe this as a population number that is in balance with the resources and the level of technology for the given area. The problem is, how do we quantify this? In some cases throughout the world, we can observe the conditions that Malthus has described. In India, we have a large, dense population that far outweighs the availability of the resources. But in other areas, we have very low population densities and high amounts of resources. In fact, Canada has the capacity to support its population as well as export food. Since Malthus, food production has increased rapidly, like it did during the agricultural revolution 10,000 years ago. Absolute food production has increased globally, and per capita food production has increased in all areas with the exception of sub-Saharan Africa. Malthus believed that food production could only be increased through cultivating a greater area of land. But as you know, we have developed several methods of agriculture that have increased crop production. The question remains, does the evidence support the idea that the Earth is a finite ecosystem that will fail to support an ever-increasing number of humans? Or are humans the ultimate resource, and with each human mind brought into this world come the possibility of solving any and all of the world's problems? And just a quick review of today's objectives. Be sure that you're able to discuss the two opposing views, neo-Malthusian and anti-Malthusian, in terms of the relationship between population size and resource consumption. Thank you.